Thank you so much for being here with us tonight for this fifth meeting of the Conversazioni here at New York University Casa Italiana Zerilli-Marimò with Antonio Monda and his fantastic guests. We are delighted to have this series. If you're not familiar with the format, Antonio and his guests pick 3 films each, films that they think deserve to be reassessed, rewatched, reevaluated, and we follow them in this trip. There is no specific topic or theme. They're completely free to choose whatever they want. And we do not announce the films in advance because we want you to come here as you are. But then we'll publish the titles, director, and all the data that you need on the website immediately after the talk. So when you go home and check out our website, you are going to have them all. So don't worry about taking notes. We take them for you, and then you go home and you can watch the films that were discussed. Before I tell you just 2 things about Antonio and Ira, I just want to remind you, since you're here, I assume you're interested in cinema. I assume you're very interested in cinema. So we have upcoming on Wednesday, that is the day after tomorrow, an event that is about the Bertoluccis. I'm saying Bertoluccis. How many Bertolucci do you know? Good. Somebody knows 2, and that's very good already. Who are they? The poet? The poet and Bernardo the filmmaker. There is another one who is? Il fratello, bravissimo. So there is Bernardo, the filmmaker that is better known in this country, of course, Academy Award winner, scandalous, original, and anything else. There is Giuseppe, who was his brother, director, filmmaker, screenwriter. He collaborated with Bernardo, but he had also his own career as a filmmaker. And then, of course, there was their father, Attilio Bertolucci, one of the most interesting and fascinating poets of the 20th century in Italy, and also a fantastic art historian in his own right. So in this book called Bertolucci A to Z, it's a sort of dictionary of the family. So we'll try to lead you into an itinerary of discovery of all 3 of them. So if you can, be with us. Antonio is going to be back on the stage, and we are also having other guests to talk about the 2 directors, the poet, delegation from the city of Parma is going to be here, the niece of the Bertoluccis is going to be here. So come for that too on Wednesday. But tonight, we have Antonio talking with Ira Sachs, and I'm just saying that Ira is the only American who is going to go to Cannes with the film in competition. So we wish him all the best there, and we'll all be rooting for you, Ira. And I leave to Antonio to tell you something more about Ira, his films, during the conversation. We don't do formal presentations. Your profile is going to emerge from the conversation with Antonio. Please welcome Antonio Monda and Ira Sachs.
Nobody congratulated about my jacket, and I'm very upset. Ira, congratulations for the film.
Thank you. Thank you.
The title is The Man I Love. Anything to do with George Gershwin?
Anything to do with what?
Gershwin, with the song.
Oh, yes. A lot to do with Gershwin. There's actually a movie that was made by Raoul Walsh called The Man I Love. Am I right? Yeah. Okay, good. Starring Ida Lupino. And I watched it with my kids while I was making this film. And I didn't have a title. And I suddenly, when I took a shower the next morning, I thought, that's the title of my movie. So it's really, and there is a Gershwin song, The Man I Love, in the film.
My first question is...
The Man I Love could be one of the original, not mine, really could be a film. I can't recommend it high enough. It has a lot to do with the things that I love about the 3 films I'm going to talk tonight, which is a kind of emotional intensity which you don't see coming.
Can I ask what is the first film that you ever seen?
You talk louder, please.
The first film that he has seen.
I don't know if this is the first film I've ever seen, but when my mother told my sisters and I in 1969, 1970 that she was going to divorce my father, they took us to see Fantasia. So that's actually the last time I've seen Fantasia.
It's weird because it's also my first film.
Oh, really?
Yes. Let's go now to our forgotten gems. You all know the format. Let's start with Ira first choice. Before I forget, it's a 2007 film by Jacques Nolot. There are several students of mine in this room, and I always ask what this film is about.
Well, I have so much to say about those two shots. One thing when I actually forgot this until it started to play is that I saw this film in 2007, maybe 2008 at Cinema Village, so a block away. And it really changed my life, this movie. It is a film that is Jacques Nolot, so that's the director. This is very much towards the end of the film. He plays a man very much like himself, older, gay, HIV positive writer, who in the film opens up his life to the audience. And it's a film about upper middle class, intellectual, creative people in Paris, gay men in 2006. It's literally about this very specific culture and community and subculture, which I have never seen in film. And I thought when I left this movie, I'm going to make a movie like that. And I decided really as I walked out to make a film that ended up being Keep the Lights On, which was a film about a very autobiographical film that I made a few years later that was equally, I had just never seen my world on camera in a way that felt very direct and very intimate in the way that I felt that Jacques did. Many things I could say about this film, but one, over the last 15 years, there's 3 films. This one, Jacques Nolot, starring in Jacques Nolot's film, Before I Forget. Frank Riplow, starring in a film called Taxi Zoom Clos, that he directed. And Chantal Akerman, starring in Je tu, il, elle, as herself, Chantal Akerman. And for me, these 3 directors are always like the bar in which I will always compete and never win, because they all, not only do they bear themselves by putting themselves in the frame, but they share a kind of vulnerability which seems to me almost endless. The vulnerability of the creative act, which is the making of the movie, of acting, and of often very, very close and intimate stories. So the other thing I will say about this film, it really moves me to see this is the end of the film, and it's a man who braves something that he thinks he would never do, which is to dress up as a woman and go into a porno theater in Pigalle in Paris. And it is, again, like the making of the movie, it is a risk that he chooses to take, and he chooses to do so transparently with all of us who watch the movie. This film was shot by José de Haye. José is a wonderful cinematographer who shot many, many films. But when I went to Paris to make a film called Passages, I was like, I want to work with the woman who shot Before I Forget, Avant j'oublie. And we did. And we got to make a movie together. And we also just got to make this new movie together. And I see in these shots, let's just say one thing that I'll mention about these shots. I see her comfort and clarity about the color black. And I think for me, that is really, really strong and striking in her work. So those are a few things to think about this film.
I found a statement by Nolot about his parents. The sole elegance my parents had was to allow me to live and then to die quickly. And Nolot was for several years Roland Barthes' companion. Do you think that there is any influence of Barthes in his work?
Gosh, I haven't read Barthes since 1986, so I don't know if I could be versed enough. I think that to me, the ability to find poetry in the everyday and the space of silence certainly is something that you can see in these shots and in this film. And what's interesting when I talk about Téchiné was also his best friend until he made this movie. To be honest, because this movie was was a bit too revealing for the friendship between Téchiné and Nolot. So they've had a hard time since this movie, but it's very interesting, gossip-wise, to watch the film for that reason, because this language of intelligentsia, but also it is completely merged with a language of sexuality and power. The conversations are very, very frank that men have in this, and there is, it's an unusual dialect almost, and I'm sure that that was shared with Bart, of course.
Thank you. Let's go to my first clip, which is a Spanish film. First of all, the title, Cría cuervos, comes from a Spanish proverb. Cría cuervos y te sacarán los ojos. Raise the ravens and they will eat your eyes. It's an extraordinary film by Carlos Saura, and I think it's one of the most interesting films ever made that put together politics and intimacy. First, you mentioned Bertolucci, maybe The Conformist is another example. But this is a very somber, quite tragic story about this young girl, I'm sure you know the film, who believes that she has poisoned her own father. And she wants to poison her own father because the father betrays her mother with another woman. And this happens during the end of the Franco era. How do you like the film? Do you know it?
I actually had never seen it before you told me that you were going to include it, so it was an opportunity. And I thought it was magnificent. It makes me think, watching this clip, about something, because thinking in a way of these two films back to back, something that someone said to me recently, and I think from what they said reminded me of a big difference between American cinema for the most part and European cinema for the most part, which is that this actor said to me, sometimes I have learned that acting is allowing yourself to be observed by the camera. And I thought that is what, for example, the greatest American actress for me, or actor, is Elizabeth Taylor. And Elizabeth Taylor is never allowing the camera to observe her. Elizabeth Taylor is always performing for the character, for the camera, with a kind of depth and complexity which is purely theatrical. In this film, you see that they're setting up a scene in which what needs to happen is we need to watch, and we need to be allowed to watch these kids. And I think it's a really wonderful quality that I admire.
I'm sure you noticed the little kid looks at the camera.
Yeah.
Doesn't follow the instruction of the director. Which one is your favorite Liz Taylor film?
Well, the one I think about the most is Suddenly Last Summer.
Yeah, that's my favorite too.
Yeah.
But there is also a great performance by Katharine Hepburn, Montgomery Clift.
I don't remember either of those performances.
Sure. Katharine, you can
There's
forget
only one
Katharine
person
Hepburn.
in Suddenly Last Summer. Well, that seems to be a little controversial for this crowd. We got some Monty Clift fans here.
Let's go to your second choice. I'm happy you picked a William Wellman film, but let me hear, why do you pick this one?
Because of that sweater. Which is a great sweater. I mean, it's a great, this is a beautifully made film. I saw this film with my kids and my husband, who's here. We watched a lot of films during the pandemic, and I discovered Wellman during that time. And this film was really. It's about Depression era, two best friends. It almost feels like Splendor in the Grass. It's like a dance with a lot of young people, and it's a high point. And then basically they're going to have to lose that Americana because they don't have any money. So these two boys go on the road and they meet a girl who's dressed as a boy, and they're all on the railroad together. And it's really a very tough, but wonderfully joyous, cinematically, film about growing up and about poverty and about America and about American filmmaking, too. The whole movie is, I think, 65 minutes. So for me, the economy of the film is a real reminder of what can be done, like Chekhov, in the short, in something that is a shorter structure. That if you and I think part of it, and you'll see this in the third film, is really it's an expressionist kind of cinema. There's so much emotion in every frame, but also in this performance. This kid is amazing, and I am really struck by that. When I saw the film, what I thought of is it's like a kind of cross between Paul Thomas Anderson and Ozu, because it's incredibly alive with the world. Like, it lets the world in. These amazing bravura shooting on the train that you're just like, wow, how do they pull that off? But I think the mixture at that point between the real and the cinematic and the fiction and what was out there was really alive. This is a pre-code film also, and I think you can feel there's rape in this film, there's child molestation, there's amputation, there's a lot of high stakes things that I feel like we're still suffering from the fact that the code stopped all of that. And we don't even know it, how much cinema and storytelling changed because the code came in. So this kind of film couldn't be made anymore. I think it changed everything forever. We can't go back to the years we lost.
Actually, the film now has a happy ending, which was imposed by Jack Warner, because the original story was quite somber and tragic. And I'm happy that you mentioned Wellman, quite a forgotten filmmaker, but he won an Oscar. He was an actor.
Right.
He won the Oscar for Wings, where you see that incredible long shot. Any other film by Wellman that you like?
Well, there were 3 films that I watched at the same time with my family. This one, Safe in Hell, and Night Nurse. And that's a great trilogy. Those 3, I mean, they're all like drop-dead amazing movies.
How do you like A Star is Born, the original?
I've never seen it.
I like it too.
It's important to have gaps.
Let's go to my second choice, which is another American film. I hope you don't mind if I take a little detour before saying a few words about this film. Last night I was tired, but not tired enough to go to bed, so I decided to watch a short film, meaning not a very long one. And I say this because in this film, I'm sure you noticed there is Jeff Bridges together with Clint Eastwood. And I saw High Noon, where Jeff's father, Lloyd Bridges, plays an important role. And it's such an extraordinary film. I didn't remember how good it is. And Jackie was with me. She was pretending not to watch the film, but she was listening to dialogue, and she would comment on the wife who leaves the husband, but then she comes back, and all the rest. I'm saying this because great films are always readable in different layers. And this is an action film that is always unexpected. Always something strange and unexpected happens, including the rabbits, for example, and the guy who starts shooting. And he was hired by Clint Eastwood to just, film one of his films. And this is one of the most original films Clint Eastwood ever made. Did you know it?
No, I watched it again.
And did you like it?
I liked it a lot.
Because
you even watching it now, you want to keep watching it, right? You don't want to hear us talk. You want to watch the movie because it keeps. I think you describe it well. It keeps surprising you, and also it's Cimino in a point in which
it's his first film.
Yeah, you see his depth and also his virtuosity. Both of those things are happening at the same time in such an easy way, and within a way, sort of low stakes, which makes it more fun. There's nothing he's showing off with the film. He's just experiencing some amount of joy, I would say. Also, the film is, they're both amazing, and particularly Jeff Bridges, I think, is amazing.
And there is always that humanistic approach that Cimino has. He loves his characters, even the bad ones. Mm-hmm. Now let's go to your third choice. I must tell you that I was surprised. We can say what happened today, because the film is Vengeance is Mine, and my mistake, I thought he wanted to show the Japanese film made by Inamura in 1971, while actually he had in mind an American film made a few years later. So I'm not prepared about this film. I'll let you talk. Okay. Let's watch the clip. So why this film and why the remake, not the original?
Not a remake.
It's not a remake. It's just the same. No. Oh, that's why. No, okay.
It's not.
Tell me. I'm not familiar, to be honest.
This movie, Michael Roemer, which I think who died last year, an amazing person and filmmaker. Maybe if you know his work, some of you might know this film. It was at Film Forum about 4 years ago. When it opened at Film Forum, it was the first time it was ever released. Michael had a life of Job. This was the third of his features, which never got released. The first was called The Trouble with Harry. Plot Against Harry. Thank you. I always get the Hitchcock title of the Plot Against Harry, which was made in the 60s and released in the 80s. So there was a 20-year gap between when he made it and when he released it. Then this one, and then there's one more, which also played at Film Forum, which was never released and just came out, which is, the title's escaping me, but it's Pilgrim Farewell. And Michael was a kid in Germany. He was on the Kindertransport. And he came to America. And he made a documentary called Dying, and he made a feature called Nothing But a Man. Both of those were released. He spent his life teaching film at Yale University, and he was kind of the beloved teacher, but no one knew this hidden career that he'd had of these films that never got released. It was released at Film Forum, as I said, and I did the Q&A with Michael, who was at the time in which I did it. He was 94. And he came, and this movie, literally my jaw dropped watching the movie. And I have to say, anyone I told to watch it, they told me the same thing. And particularly, I think of filmmakers who've seen this film. There's something, it's like it is a free and excessive and a film full of intensity that is utterly his own. It's unlike anything I've ever seen, I have to say, this movie, which is not a very, what does that mean? But I guess what it means is that the expectations of what humans are supposed to be doing in a movie are broken at all points. And you can see in the performance of Trish Van Devere, it's like a Tennessee Williams performance, but without in realism, like in real world. So it's a documentary version of a Tennessee Williams character. The movie is, yeah.
Sorry. Why do you think it was never released for several years?
This movie was, I believe this, we have an expert here, but I believe that it was made from American Playhouse. I just think the guy had it, like things were going against Michael Roemer, given the quality of the work that he made. But I'm going to tell you a story. We were doing a Q&A. It was, for me, the best Q&A I ever did. He was such a deep and kind and thoughtful person. I tried to ask him, the film is about mothers and children, and it's about violence, and it's about emotional cruelty. It's about memory, very, very much. And he kind of couldn't really get anywhere with where the movie came from. And then he stopped, and he said, well, when I was a kid in Germany, before he was got out with his parents, he said, I had a nanny and I loved her. She was the person in my life who meant the most to me, and she beat me. Somebody's eyes just went, what? Which she beat me. And I was always, I guess I'm trying to figure out how those two things can exist together in one, which is that someone he loved so, and then you think about the Holocaust, and you think about the history that he was under. How do you live as a human with extraordinary sensitivity, knowing that violence is imminent and possible? Yeah.
Thank you. Also for the recommendation. Let's go to my final choice, which is an Italian film by Paolo Pasolini. La Ricotta is a 25 minutes film in an omnibus film called Rogo Pag. Ro is for Rossellini, Go for Godard, Pa for Pasolini, and G for Gregoretti. And I think it's Pasolini's masterpiece. Orson Welles plays a filmmaker, and it's dubbed in Italian by Giorgio Bassani, the novelist of The Gardens of Finzi Contini, who is bored and pompous and is shooting a film about the Passion of the Christ, imitating the early Renaissance paintings by Pontormo and Rosso Fiorentino. And but the film is about this extra called Stracci, which means rags, who ends up dying on the cross and is the real Christ figure. Every time I watch this film, another Pasolini film, I ask to myself, was he a good novelist? I don't think so. Was he a good poet? I don't think so. Was he a good filmmaker? Maybe he was not, but he was a true artist. And more important, he was a prophet. I think this is his role in art and in politics and in life. I don't know if you like Pasolini's film, and in particular this one, but I think it's by far his greatest.
That's interesting. I'd never seen this till you showed it to me. So it's a very, very effective film. I have this feeling of Pasolini that I adore him, but I don't love him. Like I really am so inspired by his prophet, right? His prophecy, his ability to see. The connection between Pasolini and Fassbinder isn't, but I love Fassbinder. But I think they're on par.
Closest, yeah.
But they're on par in lots of ways because they're so authentic and they're so committed.
Both.
Yes, but I'm not talking. I'm talking about the work, not their lives. But I think also for me as a gay man and as a filmmaker, like people they always have this idea that things have gone in a direction of progress, and I'm always like, wait a minute, everybody. There was Pasolini, there was Fassbinder, there was Taxi Zoom Clos, there was Visconti, that has not been true. And for me, in order to kind of get courage about what images you can make, I go back to Pasolini. And I go back to films like this because actually we need to be reminded of what was allowed economically, artistically, culturally. And we're fighting. So Pasolini's a hero for me.
I agree. And it's interesting because at the beginning of the film, there is Pasolini's own voice that says, I'm sure that this film will create a scandal. And it did. It was censored. But I want to tell you clearly that the story that is narrated, meaning the Passion of Christ, is the most sublime ever written. Yeah. So he was an heretic and a prophet at the same time. Yeah. Since we always close with very sad films, and now we have a comic relief, which is something that maybe Ira didn't see. And it's a film that I saw when I was 10 or 11 and made me laugh. I don't know if it's still funny, but at the time it was the funniest film I ever seen. Let's watch it. So Louis de Funès is extremely popular in France and also in Italy, I might say, but practically unknown in this country. Yeah. Did you know him?
No.
He was extremely famous in the 60s and early 70s. He was Portuguese, but second generation, so he was born in France. So that's my little hidden gem.
I'll just say one thing about that film because it made me think about Pasolini. Because what I noticed is the film has a lot of suspense. Like the audience is pretty kind of a little nervous and uncomfortable and wanting to know what's going to happen. And I actually thought of Hitchcock watching that scene. Like there is anticipation. There's a person who's in an audience. There's a group of people. Like, is he going to be discovered? And I thought this is what Pasolini resists. And that Pasolini resists suspense as a necessity for narration, which is why you think he's not a good novelist, why maybe poetry is a good form for him, and why his films are, for me, very different than the three I chose, where there is always, in the shot and in the story, suspense. That is not something that I think is interesting to Pasolini.
Thank you. Before we go, can you tell us one question, and then if you have a question from the audience, can you tell us something about your film, or it's a complete?
No, sure.
The film in Cannes, I mean.
Yeah, it's a film called The Man I Love, as we discussed, and it's about it's set in the late '80s here in New York, which is the time when I came to the city, and it's about a performing artist, an actor, and a downtown experimental group who is facing the end of his life, and at that time takes on one possibly last great role. And it's really a film about creativity and the making of art as a form of survival.
And it stars Rami Malek?
Rami Malek and Tom Sturridge, Rebecca Hall, Eben Moss-Bacharach, Actually, and Stephen Girgis, who wrote the play starting, is in it also. So it's a ensemble film that has turned out to be very, almost more personal than I expected when I started making it. So that feels good.
Thank you. I don't know if there are questions. Otherwise, I look forward to seeing you again on Wednesday for the Bertolucci's. Thank you very much. Good night.